the governor. So, Vanessa, did you ever release the wrong person?
No, we did have one try to imitate his cellmate. He'd gone through all his cellmate's details, his address, his prison number, his age, etc., etc. But he only got as far as receptions. I mean, this sort of smacks to me of pretty much showing the state of our prisons as is at the moment. You know, I mean,
87 of them in a year.
Yeah,
it's really not good. Sorry?
One is too many.
Totally. And of course, there's the public annoyed about it, but there's also the victims of those crimes and the fact that there are people who have done horrific things, sexual crimes, violent crime, and all the rest of it back on the streets when they shouldn't be. But tell us how you think, just drill down a little bit on what you were saying there about the state of our prisons and the fact, is it just they're just overwhelmed and they just can't get even these basic details right?
Well, I think you've got to look at the staffing, you know, and the systems that are in place, the management checks that are in place. And of course, when you've got overcrowded prisons with large shortfalls of staff, then things slide. You know, we only have to look at the escape of Daniel Khalif. I mean, he took full advantage of the fact that security checks weren't done. Vehicles weren't searched coming in, they weren't searched going out. You know, prisoners weren't accounted for in the kitchens. So when you're, you know, particularly when they did the early release scheme and they released 1,500 prisoners in a day, usually the whole prison service releases around about 1,000 prisoners a week. So it's a lot of pressure on prisons, but there's no help for prisons. So I can clearly see how it has happened, you know, but like I say, you know, once is an error, 87 times is downright carelessness, and procedures and management checks are not built in enough. And of course, also, Peter, if you look at like when you come into airports and you go through customs and they take your fingerprints and verify you via your passport photo. Many prisons don't have that because they're old Victorian prisons, so they haven't got the technology. And apart from that, look at the investment that has not happened in our prisons over the last 15 years. So it's hardly surprising that mistakes like this are made.
I wonder who you think is to blame for it specifically. I mean, you're talking about the system, but there will be human error as well within that. I mean, what you're saying, obviously, we need more investment, we need to sort this out and so on, but there will, I mean, how would a prison that has released the wrong person, for example, or released 87 people when they shouldn't have been released, how will sanctions work within that? How will they be sort of disciplined within that?
Well, that's a difficult one, because if it's one person who's released the prisoner, well, then you could blame that particular person. But if it's the wrong person who's been unlocked, if it's the wrong person who's been identified in receptions, if it's the wrong person that's been identified by the manager, then you're getting many more. If it's the wrong sentence calculation, well, that's down to a governor signing the license. So I mean, each individual one would have to be taken on an individual basis to see but there should be some accountability, absolutely.
How many prisoners, I mean, maybe you know this, maybe you don't, Vanessa, but do a lot of prisoners get out for Christmas, get out for a day or two if they're low risk or if they're coming to the end of their sentences?
Some may. I mean, they can apply for temporary release, but again, you know, they're all risk assessed, and it has to be for a specific reason, not just because it's Christmas.
Right.
You know, it has to be whether it was, maybe a funeral or a wedding or something like that. But they would be coming towards the end of their sentence anyways. It wouldn't be, you know, somebody who's just come in and been sentenced.
Very interesting. Vanessa, thanks for all your thoughts. As always, Vanessa Frake, our former prison governor.